We good to go? Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Mark Holtzman. I'm the superintendent of the McKeesport Area School District, and I'm excited to host several of my colleagues this afternoon about charter school reform, and a topic that is very, very sensitive to all of our school districts and the way in which we manage our day-to-day operations to meet the needs of our students. So I'd like to thank all of you and welcome everybody to the McKeesport Area School District on behalf of our school board of directors, which there are several members here this afternoon, as well as my administrative team that is also represented here this afternoon. Also, I'd like to have a special thank you to the Pennsylvania League of Urban Superintendents and Schools that have aligned this opportunity today. There's approximately 19 school districts statewide that are doing simultaneous press conferences to support the need for charter school reform. We're also very fortunate to have Senator Brewster join us today, where he has done some really strong work with legislation and bills to make sure that we are moving in the proper direction to be provided more support within our school systems. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time kind of telling each other's story of each of our individual school districts. Before we do that, I just want to kind of introduce my colleagues that are here today. There are 7 other local superintendents here with us today. Ms. Lisa Duvall from South Allegheny School District Superintendent, Sue Moyer, the superintendent at Duquesne City School District, James Harris, the superintendent of Woodland Hills School District, Nancy Hines, the superintendent of Penn Hills School District, Jeannie Hunt, the superintendent of Clarendon City School District, Ed Weir, the superintendent of Steel Valley School District, and last but not least, Linda Iverson, the superintendent of Wilkinsburg School District. Hopefully I got those all correct. So I just want to share with you a few relevant things. We represent the Mon Valley area kind of loosely, roughly, as far as demographics concerned, right outside of the city of Pittsburgh. But we all have very similar challenges and struggles as representing either urban school districts or similar demographics to urban areas and school districts. So we often fight similar battles and some very large financial issues due to charter school concerns. So a little bit about the McKeesport Area School District. We're a relatively large urban school district with approximately 3,300 students representing grades pre-K through 12. We do have intense poverty. We have our fair share of challenges, but charter schools have attacked areas like the Mon Valley to take advantage of the community challenges to convince families that they're tuition-free educational programs. We have approximately 500 students that attend brick and mortar charter schools, and approximately another 100 more that attend cyber charter schools. That bill, just for the cyber charters alone, is about $1.5 million yearly. We have our own cyber program that has approximately 100 students in it, that those children we're happy to have enrolled in our program. But we total about 600 students that attend charters, brick and mortar and cyber charters. That's approximately $7 million a year in charter school tuition, which is over 10% of our actual functioning budget of our operating budget of our school district. We continue to fight the same battles as many others of my colleagues here. Rising special education costs with relatively flat funding, the charter school tuition, debt service payments that continue to improve our facilities and make them safe places for our children, pension costs that continue to rise due to some of the challenges within the PESER system. We've also raised taxes to the index for several years in a row, including raising taxes above the index for the first time in school history in recent years. So the burden has become the taxpayer's burden when it comes to charter school costs. Our community's financial instability cannot continue to carry the burden of the expenses created by charter schools. It just can't continue. Charter schools continue to be the biggest challenge when it comes to educating children. We have a huge transient population in our community. Likely around 45% of our student body either will start school or leave. They'll start school after the first day of school, meaning they start a little late, or they will leave during the school year and likely attend one of my colleagues' school districts. That transient population of children becomes manifested or becomes a bigger issue for us when they are then moved through the charter systems, where they are sent to a cyber charter and they return to us for failing grades. Or they're moved to a brick and mortar charter system and they're sent out for behavioral or attendance issues without much of an explanation. So it's a very, very challenging situation as we go through. Oftentimes the poor attendance or behavior issues are not communicated back to the home school district, and we have to educate all children, regardless of what the circumstances are. Unfortunately, other reasons of our challenges are human resources in our district. As I mentioned, when Senator Brewster and I had the luxury of hosting Governor Wolf, been a month or two now, here in our district about the charter school reform package, and we were in our library, and I mentioned the library is a beautiful space, except unfortunately we don't have librarians or media specialists to house in those libraries, so therefore they're underutilized, which is a sad reality of what our schools are dealing with as far as the human resource aspect. But those rising expenses continue to challenge us financially. McKeesport Area School District has eliminated more than 115 professional and support staff positions since 2012. The charter schools continue to deplete our resources with no accountability, without any financial responsibility. Taxpayer money is used to flood the media with commercials, billboards, especially at the start of the school years, to recruit our students away. So they're using our finances to recruit our children away from our schools. Doesn't make a lot of sense, or it doesn't help us at all. Competition, everybody says it's about competition. Well, I'm extremely competitive. I'll compete anything. But how could you be competitive when your school system has to compete against another system that has endless resources, endless opportunities? They don't have to have all their teaching staff highly qualified. They have all the technology at their fingertips. There's no accountability for how they spend. They could do, and our public school board that's represented here today has no oversight in the work that happens in the charter school system. So therefore, they are able to move through their process of educating children a lot simpler and easier than the public schools are at this particular time. Currently, we have two designated, we'll call them support staff, that their primary job is to recruit children so they don't go to charter schools so we can stop the bleeding. Roughly $250,000 to about $500,000 a year is our annual growth in what we budget for charter school tuition, and that's how it's grown to the $7 million number it is today. So the last thing I'm going to share is I'd like to challenge, whether it's the individuals here, which many of us are working together on this initiative, but challenge anybody else, whether it's a community member, it's a politician that couldn't be here today, to come and see what the inside of our public schools look like, because there's too many negative stigma about failing schools and test scores and efforts that are made. I think we're very, very comfortable in stating in all of our schools, to speak for everybody, that we are creating productive young men and women that are going to be productive citizens, homeowners, taxpayers, and young people that can go on and manage this world and navigate this world at a very, very high level. So we want to encourage everybody to come and see what it looks like when there's a change of classes in our schools, or when our children in our elementary schools are escorted to lunch or to a restroom, and their behaviors, interactions, or what the instruction looks like in our classrooms, and the engagement and the effort that's made by our educators. So I'd like to challenge everybody, and the doors of McKeesport Area School District are always open, and I'm happy to host anybody that's interested. So at this time, I'm going to have a few of my colleagues make comments and tell their story. So we'll start with Sue Moyer from the Duquesne City School District.
Good morning, good afternoon. Duquesne City is a small school district right outside McKeesport, actually. It's about 2 square miles. We have approximately 425 students currently enrolled in pre-K through 6. Very unique situation. My 7th through 12th graders actually attend the neighboring school districts of their choice of West Mifflin or East Allegheny. However, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the charter reform. This isn't about school choice. This is about charter school reform and the funding. My school budget is 20% of my budget goes to charter school tuition, which is about $4 million. So 20% of my budget is paying for students to attend somewhere other than Duquesne City Elementary. We have worked very diligently since I've started at Duquesne City in a campaign when Mark had talked about the competition of recruiting my own students back. And to date, we've saved approximately what we can record, about $500,000 in money not going out to a charter school. What I can't measure is the students who didn't leave because of what we've been able to showcase. And exactly what Mark said, bring parents in to show what we are doing at Duquesne, showing the engagement, showing the maker spaces, and what we're able to highlight. We are working very diligently. The charter numbers seem to be slowly becoming less. We're 9 students less than we were at the end of last year, at the beginning of the school year. But 9 students is a start, but it's not nearly enough as we continue to really just want reform and some oversight in where the money is going. So I don't want to take much more of my time. I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Linda.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Linda Iverson, and I'm the superintendent of Wilkinsburg School District. And I'm here joining my fellow members of the Pennsylvania League of Urban Superintendents to urge our lawmakers today in this room to take action against both funding inequality and the lack of charter school oversight that we're all experiencing, both of which are greatly impacting all of our districts and the education of our students. So Wilkinsburg School District is located in Wilkinsburg Borough. In Allegheny County, we have approximately 570 students, and I employ about 70 staff, teachers and staff, and 30 additional staff at 2 schools, 1 administrative building and a pre-K2, pre-K1 building, roughly 337 students, and an intermediate building, 4 through 6, turning intermediate with 233 students. And my 7th through 12th grade students attend Pittsburgh Public, Westinghouse Academy, and Pittsburgh Public, located in Homewood, nearby in the city of Pittsburgh. So students attending the Wilkinsburg School District, as you've heard many of my 2 colleagues mention, face economic barriers just as their students do to attaining academic success. More than 99% of my students are qualified for free and reduced lunch. Many of my students come from fragmented home environments and live in households where there's generational poverty is just prevalent. And all those barriers and those characteristics are prevalent in their environments every day. The district understands this though, that low-income students are often not getting their basic needs met, and in turn, there results in social and emotional issues. It results in social and emotional issues in our classrooms. And in our superintendent meetings, we talk a lot about what that student looks like in our class. And it's not just coming in from trauma-informed instances. It's not having food the night before. It's not getting sleep, not having clothes. It's not always sexual assault or physical assault. The children who are coming in our classrooms come with all of these barriers on top of the poverty that's prevalent in my neighborhood. Staff, therefore, face emotional and physical outbursts from students on a daily basis. These incidents further just isolate all my at-risk students from accessing and completing their education. So urban districts such as ours, which already are dealing with the most challenges in education, also end up with the largest portion, as Mark and Sue have said, cyber and charter burden. To give you a rough idea of the numbers, in my district, my budget is $30 million. 20% of my budget also goes to charter schools. It is paid, last year I paid $12,879.23 per regular ed child to charter schools, and $40,226.46 for special education students, almost triple. That's per special education student. While we also, and here is the kicker, we provide the same services, often using the same companies and curriculum, but for a fraction of the very same cost. Most recently, my point for being here today is to talk about something that's recently happened in my district. I haven't been able to talk to my colleagues if they've experienced this, but most recently what I have seen, charter schools have taken it upon themselves to create their own version of the PDE Form 363, which is the form we submit to PDE for tuition calculation for districts that are required to pay for charter schools. Charter schools, when doing this form, have ignored the deduction process set by PDE, and the figures they're using to calculate tuition are the actual figures from the year before rather than the budgeted figures for the year we're in. And that's just simply against the law. So the law established by PDE, they're not even following. And they're going around school districts submitting this form, and what's happening, there's deductions coming out of my general subsidy. So far, out of the 12 charter schools my students attend, it's only happened with one. We have done some very aggressive things in my district. My solicitor and I have filed a letter of appeal to PDE. We've also sent to that various charter school a right to know request, because I want to know, how did you come up with these figures? And we're going to begin to look at if there's some sanctions we can even bring against that charter school, because this inequality is not fair. The timing of invoices is also a concern. I don't know if you all experienced that. Charter schools do not take that prior year figure. Also, we're not getting billed on a regular basis. So sometimes when that reconciliation happens, there are different names on those bills, and you don't know when a child entered, when a child left, and so you don't know sometimes what that actual figure you're paying, if it's accurate. So we've done those aggressive things, and we're hoping to see some remedy. So it's just simply not sustainable for us. We just cannot continue this way. If the other charter schools jump on this bandwagon and this PDE continues to deduct from our subsidy, we won't have the funds to run a district to educate the students presently enrolled. So in summary, if this continues, we're going to have to think really creatively. Presently, we have a very aggressive marketing plan. You heard Mark talk about some marketing strategies, and I have found as a superintendent, what we need to do as public school educators is do what they're doing. We need to really get out there and sell out districts, because what we offer is equivalent to what they're doing. But you notice they are better at that. They can appeal to our parents around the interests of students. So my plan that we put in place is to do some of that. And it's very low cost. From the grassroots, I put my staff all on top of it. So when I get notification that a student of mine is going to a charter school, immediately a letter goes home to that charter school family. And it says to that mother, dear, and it's very personalized, dear Ms. Smith, we just received information that you are going to be enrolling your child in charter school. Let me tell you about Wilkinsburg. So I'm selling my district. And that particular school, I have bullets about what's good about Wilkinsburg compared to where this child is going to be attending. Whenever I have programs around anything, we just opened and renovated one of our intermediate school. Every charter school parent got a letter. There's a follow-up call made to every charter school mom to say, did you get the letter Dr. Iverson sent you? Or do you have any questions about that? Can we answer? So we're trying to do some grassroots things. We do know we need to we're going to look at some other avenues in terms of publicizing on buses. As they do, I was at Kennywood this past summer. There was a propel table at Kennywood. And so that kind of thing is what I know we need to do, but we're trying to bring our kids back. And as Sue said, this aggressive approach we put in place, I was successful in bringing back 9 students to our district. We had an open house for the renovated building just 2 weeks ago. About 5 charter school parents were invited. I invited all of them. 5 came, and out of that, 1 has returned. So it's going to take that kind of us to get our kids back, because I know what we offer is equivalent. But the funding around this initiative of charter reform is something we need support from everyone in this audience and all of our state legislators and our community, because it's bankrupting our schools, and we will not be able to continue to sustain a quality education for our students enrolled. Thank you.
Nancy Hines from Penn Hills will be our next speaker.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate the opportunity to address the group today. I am the superintendent of Penn Hills School District, and I've been in the capacity of that position for about 5 years now. I have helped to expose some very serious problems in my district that have received a lot of media attention. But most importantly, however, I am a resident of Penn Hills School District. I've lived there for more than 25 years, and I have 3 students from my family who have graduated from that school district. So I think my perspective is just a little bit different. I'm talking to you today not only as a superintendent, but as a resident, a mother, and a taxpayer in that particular district. So what are my concerns about charter schools and how public schools are affected. As I read through some of this information, I want you to think about the names of these school districts. You may be familiar with most of them, some of them maybe not, but think about what they all have in common. I'm not going to state the obvious. You formulate that in your own mind. When you go to PDE's website, it lists 6 districts of 500 in the Commonwealth as being in financial recovery. They include Chester Upland, Duquesne City, Harrisburg City, Penn Hills, Scranton, and York City. That same website that is managed by the Department of Education also lists 5 districts, again, of 500 in the Commonwealth, as being in financial watch. Again, I challenge you, think about what these districts have in common. Aliquippa, Erie City, Reading, Stilton Highspire, and Wilkinsburg. I would argue that generally, it's the adults who created the problems in these districts. But what about the kids who are left behind and who are being exploited? What can they look forward to? Their district being dissolved. We have 2 colleagues here who talk about what that looks like. They, in those moments, basically begged other districts to accept them. I was a principal at Still Valley at the time that Duquesne was being dissolved. And I remember how we felt in that district about perhaps taking on students from that community. Do these students look forward to accepting and trying to ignore heightened and ongoing negative media attention? The media has fed on Penn Hills. I can tell you numerous examples of how that has happened and how that's affected us. And the charter schools have capitalized on those negative media moments. Our students are being lured into charter school enrollment with false promises of more rigorous programming, greater student achievement, a safer school environment, and the list of promises goes on and on. But as my colleagues have pointed out, there's no evidence that their experiences are better, safer, and so forth. However, we don't have the resources to compete with the marketing and the ad campaigns. In my district of Penn Hills, we have an exceptional cyber program. We call it our Chiefs Academy. You probably don't know any of these things. Our high school level courses, many of them have NCAA clearinghouse approval. That's pretty unique. Most of the cyber charter schools don't have that. We have FaceTime with our staff. It's not purely a student sitting at a computer and they never interact with adults or with their peers. We have teachers who teach exclusively in the online environment. It's not an after-school job or supplemental position for them. Our students' PSSA and Keystone scores in the cyber program in our school district exceeds most of the cyber charter. But again, you don't know that because we can't afford to compete with their ad campaigns and their marketing. As my colleagues have said here, and the others in the audience who are joining us, I'm sure you would agree, we are not opposed to competition. It's just that the field of play has got to be level. My appeal to the lawmakers, and Senator Brewster to my left, charter schools don't have the challenges that we have. Think about it from the public school domain. The board members who are present, they don't have to risk angering the residents, your neighbors, your friends, because you're raising their taxes. They don't have that challenge at all. They're not at risk of losing programming or staff when local tax dollars are not sufficient to support multiple schools in the same community. If a public school does not pay tuition bills readily, the charter can apply for a deduction from the public school's next subsidy payment. We are not granted a waiver or an additional time to research student addresses, and my colleagues can tell you, oftentimes there are billing errors. We get billed for students who are technically in a zip code that looks like Penn Hills, but maybe it's Riverview, maybe it's Wilkinsburg. And by the time we get that bill adjusted, guess what? They've already received their tuition payment. So we have to monitor the records. We have over 800 kids. We're looking at over 800 different invoices for students and trying to map out their zip codes, make sure we get a credit for the kid that we were incorrectly billed for. It is a nightmare. The charter schools don't have to meet workplace standards that are dictated by unions and CBAs. And these are important to our workers, but very costly to management, as we know. The charter schools, as we've already mentioned here this afternoon, they don't have to create specialized programming for disabled students. Students can be encouraged to return to their local public school if the charter school is not equipped to provide appropriate programming. The state average for percent disabled in a district is 17%. At Penn Hills, 28% of our students are disabled. We absolutely welcome children with disabilities. I want to be very clear about that. We're not encouraging them to go anywhere else. And even with that, you look at the transportation costs. Those are above and beyond what we pay for tuition. In my district, we have 3,300 students who attend our 3 schools. Beyond that, we have a total of 4,700 students we have to transport to and from different facilities. The charter schools, they can charge tuition, as Linda has pointed out, and it can be very excessive. For Penn Hills, currently we are paying $3,652.13 for every regular ed student who goes to a charter school. Conversely, if the student has an identified disability ranging from speech only, which means maybe sitting down with a speech therapist 2 or 3 times a week, to a student who is severely disabled with multiple disabilities, that cost is $32,096.11. You cannot tell me that a speech-only student requires that level of programming. What are they doing with the extra money? For Penn Hills, we pay about $15 million annually for charter school tuition and another $8 million to transport those 4,700 students. And the 47, again, encompasses non-public, private, public school students, and charter school students. The other piece that really affects us is the ability to bill based on the total budget. So we're in a large school district. Our budget is about $90 million. We can have a student from Penn Hills sitting next to a student from a much smaller district. They're in the same charter classroom. They're having the same experience, but perhaps we're paying double in tuition because our budget is bigger. And I want you to think about that. Really is not fair. That would be like me going to have my hair cut somewhere and I'm paying the cosmetologist a totally different price, a much higher price, because maybe my paycheck is bigger. It's not factored in that maybe that paycheck looks pretty impressive, and maybe I have a disabled child. Maybe I have an elderly parent I'm taking care of. Maybe I have 3 kids in college. All those things mean that the bottom line in my household is very minimal, but it doesn't matter. The paycheck looks impressive, you are paying more. It's just not fair, and we need help with that. Already mentioned here today, the charter schools don't have to accept all of the kids who apply. They use caps, they use a waiting list, and there's no accountability with that. We don't know which kids look better on paper. Are they moved to the top of the waiting list, or are they at the bottom? And we certainly know if there's a disciplinary issue, that child comes back to us. We cannot say no. We are the public school. We have no choice but to accept them, and we will accept them. There's not a problem with that. So I think as a first step, what we'd ask the lawmakers to consider for the 11 districts who are getting support, we're defined as needing help. We are in extenuating circumstances. There has to be some type of protection for us. I think about state game lands. You can't hunt there. Well, the charter schools are hunting and they're feeding on us. And if you go back to the 11 school districts that I mentioned, just even if there would be a reprieve, if there would be a discounted rate or a cap on their enrollment, that would give us enough time and enough opportunity to heal that the state of Pennsylvania would not have to bail us out. The several million dollars that we are receiving annually, we wouldn't even need that. Let the charter schools back off. If we truly want competition, force them to recruit elsewhere. Let them go to more affluent districts who can compete with them and their budgets and what they have left over in terms of staffing and programming. And that really would help us. And I really think it's in everybody's best interest to at least have protections for the 11 districts who are identified as having excessive and severe need. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you, Nancy. That was great. So our last speaker make some comments. Senator James Brewster is obviously a proponent for public schools, has been very active here in the McKeesport area, formerly as the mayor of our community and now as a senator for many years. We're very happy to have him. We communicate very often, and he obviously echoes some of our concerns, and he's going to share a few things with you that he's been doing at the state level.
Well, let me thank you, Dr. Holtzman and fellow colleagues that are here today. I have 19 school districts in my senatorial district, and some of you are here today. I guess I have to get back to the process because we're all here trying to find out how we can stop the bleeding and find ways to improve the playing field, as he mentioned. It's difficult to do that without talking about politics. And the fact of the matter is, I'm in a Democratic caucus. I'm one of 22 Democratic senators. And I can assure you that 100% of those senators are in support of what you want to do with regard to charter school reform. So when I talk about this, I'm just going to refer to the other side of the aisle because I have some fine friends on the other side of the aisle. And I have some friends over there that agree with what you want to do. But I want to read you something that I think is germane to the discussion. This happened 3 weeks ago. House Bill 355. Anybody know what that is? That's one of the problems. The communication of this information affects you in everything we talked about. It's a bill, it's a charter school reform bill that did not run. And I want to read just one paragraph from the summary that I got this morning with regard to House Bill 355. And it had a number of things in here, advertising with your money, with these little items here that I get in the mail. I just go completely berserk when we find it here. I know you all get them. You know what these things cost? Tuition free. That's your money. I don't know why they send these to me. I guess it's because, it agitates me, but it's expensive. But in this bill, there were some reforms that would have been beneficial to you. But here's what happened to the bill 4 weeks ago. This is just a quick summary. The administration, the governor, and PDE, and Senate Republicans tried to negotiate additional provisions, but the charter lobby, led by cyber charters, fought additional provisions, and by the time we were in session, neither the administration or the charters could agree. So the bill died. Why? Because when you don't want something to happen in a bill, you put an amendment in that kills the bill. It's like a poison pill. So those reforms, which would have helped you, never ran because of the heavy lobby in Harrisburg. Now I want to explain further. I've had at least a half a dozen hearings. Johnstown, Monroeville, Harrisburg, Erie, on this issue. And in every case, superintendents said exactly what you all said. Okay? I have 3 bills with 17 amendments in to the charter regulations. None of them have gotten out of committee, and I'm on the education committee. So you have to understand, this is just, and I'm not saying you don't. When you go into the education committee, there's 4 Democrats and 8 Republicans. I don't think I have to say any more, do I?
Dead in the water.
So, and the other problem you have, when I noticed at Harrisburg, and I actually took me a while to figure it out because we're in an audience like this, and all of a sudden, a flood of folks come in, young children, holding signs, I love my charter school, parents, teachers, none of whom are your enemies, right? Some of us are teachers, or have been. So this is not about the teachers, or the parents, or the kids in charter schools. This is about the administrative folks that run these charter schools. They don't want any of these restrictions. As you mentioned, and let me just flip a little bit here. When I go to other events, you know the first thing I hear from a group? We need our taxes reduced. School taxes are killing us. They have no idea that the primary cause for those tax increases are the very topic you're talking about today. The average citizen does not know that. Frankly speaking, we're getting out hustled on this issue. And another thing I found out, we have about 500 school districts. The last I checked, only about 250 of those have brick and mortar. That's a problem. You know why? Because the other 250 are not having conversations or part of conversations like this. It doesn't affect them. We need to get our colleagues engaged. Why? They live in areas where the other side of the aisle are senators and House reps. They need to get the phone calls. Wait a minute. We have colleagues in areas like the Mon Valley that are getting beat up because of a poor process. And even though it doesn't affect us, we're teachers, we're superintendents, we're principals, we're school board members, we want this changed. You see, the whole audience isn't at the table yet. That's one problem. And it's a difficult fight. I think we're making little progress. As Dr. Holtzman mentioned, it's not a coincidence that when the governor came out with his executive order, charging $86,000 for a new charter, cyber charter license, and a $15 fee to reconcile out of reconcile books. That got their attention because they know that's expensive. 2 years ago, there were 5,000 unreconciled financial debates between charters and public schools in the Department of Ed. 5,000. That's where school district and charter didn't agree on where the students were, how much should be paid. Department of Ed is they're not an accounting firm. That's not their job. So when the governor came out with his executive order on just on those two issues, all of a sudden House Bill 355 showed up with some minor reform, which would have helped you. But because of the heavy lobby by the charters, and it's extreme, they were able to win the day. I was on PCN, and I don't know if you're ever bored enough to watch PCN. I happened to be on there at PCN Plus, and I was in Pittsburgh, so it was difficult to debate. And there was a representative from the charter school in Harrisburg, and the conversation went well as far as I was concerned. But the call-ins were all loaded up with charter school. You could tell they were employees. When we have these public hearings, charter schools are in there in masses. Now, I'm not criticizing, we're all together here. We have to, we're playing a tough team here. We got to muscle up and we got to present ourselves. And we need all 500 school districts to support what we're doing. That means the School Board Association, the Superintendent's Association, the PSEA, the AFT, the PFT, every organization that represents public schools needs to get engaged in this fight. And I would say this, and I've said it in the last meeting here a month ago in Harrisburg. Dr. Holtzman said, we're not afraid of competition. I've been in Clarendon, Duquesne the other day, wonderful schools, Elizabeth, South Allegheny, McKeesport. And when I see the teachers and the superintendents and the principals working as hard as they're working with limited revenue and a dismal future with regard to charters, it's really discouraging to me. And this can be fixed in Harrisburg very easily. And we could create an environment. I even said at the last hearing to the charter school folks, because the leaders in that upper echelon are not, this isn't about the teachers. They're working hard just like you are. When you talk to the leaders, and I look out and say, well, you call yourself a public charter school. Why do you do that? Well, because we get public funds. I said, well, that's one of the problems. See, to me, a public school is a school that has a publicly elected school board. You don't. And I said to one individual, where does your board come from? His answer, I appointed him. Well, everybody laughed because it's just absurd. That's what you're competing with. And the one individual, and I don't like to make it personal, I said, well, how is it possible that you have a higher salary than the superintendent of Pittsburgh School District, the second largest in the state, and you represent a charter? How is that possible? Do you think the public knows that? Making more than anybody sitting in this room. I think that's wrong. The public has no idea what's going on. But the pressure you have to put on has to come on the other side of the aisle. Calling me is a waste of phone call. I'm already here. And so is my caucus. So is everybody on the D side. But there are good people on the other side of the aisle that when we presented our 17 amendments 18 months ago, Senator Dinnerman and I, they all got voted down, of course, and it went party line, 8-4. When I came out, 3 of those 8 pulled me aside and said, Senator, we happen to agree with you. So this is about leadership. This is leadership in the cyber charter, the brick and mortar charter, and leadership on the other side of the aisle. We need to get their attention. And I said to the folks, and I had a lot of phone calls after the hearing from charter school parents, thanking me for saying, this is not going to hurt your child. This is not going to hurt you as a parent, and it's not going to hurt you as a charter school teacher. Okay? It's going to make it a level playing field, so these folks up here aren't making a lot of money under the guise of a nonprofit, which is what's going on. And just to give you a couple final examples, one of my bills says that, you have to be a certified teacher to teach. Now we know that only 75% are required in charter schools. I even put in a bill grandfather those teachers in so they don't feel for their jobs. But get it to 90%. I'll let you try to speculate why it's only 75. I have my own idea. But keep in the back of your minds that there's a handful of people in Harrisburg that do not want 500 school districts. They're the same group that's telling the public, we're going to reduce your school taxes. Well, anybody in this room knows that you cannot reduce the school taxes if you keep letting charter schools get out in an unbridled position, right? So that's the hypocrisy. In the last hearing I was in, and I was sitting with my colleagues on both sides, and I said, I thought all of us up here were trying to do tax reform. It would seem to me that tax reform would be consistent with charter school reform. Would it not? A few other elements. A school district should, a host school district like McKeesport, when they say no to the school board and they go before the appeal board, the last example I had in McKeesport, the second one was turned down. They have since been approved. I made a phone call. I wanted to meet with the charter school appeal board. I think there's 5 members. An attorney called me. Now I'm a state senator. I'm nobody in the scheme of things. Why do you want to meet with the senator? Well, because I have some issues with the most recent reversal. Well, they don't meet. What do you mean they don't meet? Well, no, we do things by phone call. I said, you mean to tell me that nobody on the oversight board, nobody on the appeal board comes to a site and visits to see if there's an actual building there? He said, no. Hard to believe that 5 or 6 people can overturn a local elected school board who said no and don't even make a site visit. Now, those folks were appointed under Governor Corbett. That's all I'll say. There are some openings. I'm trying to get at least one member from this area on that appeal board. I've submitted several names. Governor Wolf wants to do that. The problem is, the other side of the aisle wants to expand the number on the board. And guess who they want to pick? Them. So what happens is you have a lopsided board again. I mean, that's how bad this is. And you probably know this by now, but there's a member of the House who also has a voucher bill that I think is going to run. You think this is a problem. This won't help you. And there's a good likelihood it'll run through both the Senate and the House. What we have in our favor is I'm fairly confident the governor will veto it. Now, I'm telling a lot of tales out of school, and I know we're live streaming this. This is not to insult anybody. We deal with issues like this all the time. This has huge ramifications to senior citizens who still pay their school taxes, school boards that are trying to do the right thing, teachers that are working their tails off. And we can create a partnership, okay? We can create a partnership with charter schools and public schools where nobody loses and everybody wins. I find it interesting that in the charter school statute, you can have caps. In other words, none of you superintendents can say, well, you can only take 100 of our students. But if a charter school comes into your district, and there's a couple where this has happened, they can negotiate a cap just to convince you to partner with them. I find that pretty interesting, that you can bypass the state statute with an individual contract. And I said to the charter school folks, well, if that's the case, why don't we let charter schools come in and negotiate with you superintendents instead of having it be a reconciled done through the Department of Ed? Come in and sit down with Dr. Holtzman and say, we have a charter school in town, we want to take 50 of your students. He's going to say how much you're willing to pay. I guarantee you the dollars will be a lot less than what you're paying now. And I'll give you one other final example because I don't want to take up all your time. I had one example where 25 students left the school district, which will remain nameless. 5 were special ed at $23,000. And by the way, that $23,000 in some areas goes as high as $50,000. Traditional student was $10,005, and that can get higher depending on where you're at. Well, the 25 students were gone. 5 special ed, 20 traditional. Interestingly enough, the following year, those same 25 students, 20 happened to be special ed at $23,000. There can't be anybody in Harrisburg, regardless of your political affiliation, that thinks that's okay. That is a crime. And we can fix that. When we fix it, it gives you sustainability, some comfort that you can run your operation. The charter schools can maneuver, they have to go by some rules. Taxpayers will be comfortable that you're being good stewards of their money. This can get fixed, but we have to pressure both sides of the aisle. And that's important. And I think you do that through emails, friendly. This isn't we're all together here in the state. We 12.5 million people we have to take care of. But I would like to see some more activity from the different groups, lobbying, sending out emails, letters to all the senators and House reps, letting them know, hey, I don't have a brick and mortar. 495 schools have at least one cyber charter, by the way. Okay? I think that group, that small group, they would rather see 300 public school districts in this state instead of 5. And you have to ask yourself, who's the 200 that's leaving? Somewhere in this room. I'm not going to let that happen. But we need help. Now, I'm so happy to hear about this, and I hope the other sessions are going as well, because this is the kind of presence that you have to have. These are your tax dollars. You have elected officials to be stewards of those dollars. Charters do not, as you pointed out. And I should tell you, if you don't mind, Clairton, I toured their school, and I had Senator Hughes from Philadelphia. This was 2 years ago. And when we went down to see what their backup generator was, it's a V8 engine, car motor, where you turn the key. That's the backup generator. Am I saying it right? That is an embarrassment. They worked their tails off. It was creative as you can get. And because of that visit, Senator Hughes from Philadelphia has started a number of sessions to help schools who have fallen on hard times with regard to infrastructure. Because he couldn't believe it. He took a picture of it. He shows it at meetings. That shouldn't happen in the greatest country in the world, in one of the greatest states in the union here. Philadelphia has got serious problems similar. Roofs are leaking where kids are sitting. But money's being siphoned off. Now, I may sound a little animated. It's because I am. This isn't fair. And this idea that they're helping children, to me, in some cases, is nothing but rhetoric. And I will just close by saying, anything we do by way of reform will not hurt a student that's in a charter school. It will not hurt a teacher. It will not hurt a parent. Don't let the lobbyists convince you that reform hurts you. What it does is give some predictability when you do your budgets. You shouldn't have to find out the first day of school that you lost 70 kids instead of 50. And by the way, host communities are nice. If you're going to come into a community with a charter school, you should go to every school board that you plan on taking students from. That's also in my bill. So thank you for getting engaged, because that's the support we need. If you want support in Harrisburg, we have to muscle up a little bit professionally. And I know we have enough skills and attitudes to get that done. So thank you for what you do. And thank you for inviting me, Dr.
Great. Well, thank you, Senator Brewster, for those words and some encouragement, a little bit of depression in there, but a lot of excitement. So also, I just want to say thank you not only the speakers today, but also the colleagues that represented their school districts today. We actually meet on a monthly basis. We branded ourselves with Ed Weir from Still Valley's kind of chair leadership as the Ed Leaders Pittsburgh group, which is, well, as we talk about it as a group, we have probably, 10,000-15,000 students in our school districts combined. So we become the third largest, maybe, or arguably one of the largest school districts or group of school districts in the state of Pennsylvania when you think about Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, us 8 together. So we try to work together in different capacities, but advocacy is probably our #1 priority at this point. So I just kind of want to reiterate that and thank those individuals for taking the time out of their busy day to visit with us today, as well as everyone else, even the folks that I made come. Appreciate you being here to listen I think we have made some really important points that hopefully will continue to show some momentum, and we can have some progress made here in the very near future. And we look forward to, if there's any questions, we're happy to answer any questions now or after. But thank you very much for being here today.